My name is Matthew Mitchell Breen. I'm from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I live in Charleston now. I represent, he is actually my uncle, First Lieutenant Thomas Blake. He was promoted to First Lieutenant. I'm proud, and what makes my repositus really interesting is that he left a journal, which is the only first-hand account of the battles, happenings, camp life of the 1st New Hampshire. And he started in, I believe, March of 1777, and so it captures the Battle of Saratoga. He gives accounts of the different battles that made up the Battle of Saratoga. He gives the casualties in that battle. The 2nd and 3rd New Hampshire, they both lost their second in command, their lieutenant colonels during that engagement. He explains how the army was laid out and how the men constructed their huts that they would live in for that winter. He even, interesting one, records whenever the news that France had agreed to become a formal ally of the United States, how Washington lined up the entire army in 2 lines and fired what he put in brackets a feu de joie. And they kept firing twice in celebration. And also, particularly interesting for our society and our gatherings, is that he records the toasts that would be given on July 4th of every year subsequent. In 1778, there were 13 toasts. In 1779, I think there were 13 toasts. They kind of switched, but they were always to, they always had, of course, revolutionary themes in them. But it's interesting to see the officers bonding together. He explains camp life, and at the end of the war, First Lieutenant Blake deposited with the State of New Hampshire not only his journal, but also his paymaster ledgers. So because he deposited those with the state, they were preserved. I didn't know that I had any New England ancestry. And I kept looking, and it took me a decade. And then eventually I found a line because my New Hampshire family had moved to Virginia after the Revolution. So it was long forgotten, and I kept checking all the different lines of my family tree, and I finally found that connection. So I'm very honored that I can represent Thomas Blake. It's a very special organization, and society means a lot to me because it represents half of who I am. My father is a naturalized citizen. He's a Canadian, so I'm first generation on that side. And then on my mother's, where I get all my American ancestry, I'm 15th on her side. So it represents kind of the dichotomy of myself. So it means a lot to me in that regard. We had just gotten done fighting a war against an established country with a monarchy, aristocracy, and whatnot. And it's not really trying to supplant the rule of the republic with a new aristocracy, but it's merely commemorating and lauding the contributions of those men who were in camp, who were having to risk life and limb, and Adams and Franklin, monolithic figures in the Revolution, but the real struggle was borne by the officers who, they could resign their commission at any time, but we're talking about men who's ruined their personal fortunes to fight for our freedoms that we enjoy today. And so it's not necessarily a group of people who trace our lines back. It's a commemoration of those men who fought a very difficult fight to establish our experiment, our United States of America, where we have our Bill of Rights, we have our freedoms, everyone is equal under the law, and those are the men who fought, and they pretty much did it without pay, and it's just something special to remember. It's not necessarily that we're denigrating other people, but we are proud of where we come from. I think public service plays a big role in the society. A lot of distinguished members have been statesmen, military officers, those in the community, the clergy, doctors, attorneys, that sort of thing. But I think nowadays, especially with the creation of the American Revolution Institute, it's a great way for us to educate the public, because as time goes on, history is forgotten, but the American Revolution is something that we really need to remember because it is the bedrock of our constitutional republic. So it's something that keeps us relevant, really, the American Revolution Institute especially, in that it's a way for non-members to get engaged, and if they love the revolution, and of course many Americans love the freedoms that we enjoy, so it's a way that the society can stay relevant in this modern day and age, is to be able to educate those and preserve the memory of the founding of our constitutional republic. American Independence Museum is a great asset of the Society of Cincinnati in the state of New Hampshire. Other societies do operate house museums or something like that, but nothing to the scale of the American Independence Museum. We have a Dunlap broadside. We have one of the original Purple Hearts. We have 2 of the 3 drafts of the Constitution. It's a very important place where anyone can come and learn something about the founding of this country, and an important lesson in our government, our history, and they can walk away with really important lessons about who we are and where we came from. And really that's what the founding fathers wanted, was the informed citizenry, because that's what they were. They were informed citizens that realized we are not living up to our potential under English rule. We can have more freedoms for ourselves and for people who come here by establishing our own independent government. And they were risking their life and their property to do that. And the American Independence Museum highlights specific acts of that, but it also preserves, more importantly, the ideals of that. It's just a place where not only do all Society of Cincinnati members, they can feel at home, but really every American can feel at home because of all the historical aspects of it. Whenever I first started it, we probably had, I don't know, at the most a dozen bios, and I found out about it that we were, because we had just gotten our website and we had the list of proposed time. I submitted one, and then I kept going and going and going, and I think I have 80 or 90 at this point or something like that. But it's just something that's really fun because it gets you really involved, and the deeds that these men accomplished are just phenomenal. And it's just wonderful to be able to bring to light their heroic deeds, even so much as if I can only find a paragraph for an officer. It gives him more of a contribution than just a name on the list. I can at least give him those details. And of course, for some people, like I said, it's a paragraph, and for some people like Jonathan Seeley or John Stark or Major General Sullivan, it's pages, because they went on to do a lot. But it's something that's very special that has connected me to my propositae, and I hope that I can eventually get one for every single propositus that we have, because it's really helpful in connecting people, because a lot of people might have a name. They might have a name that they say, oh yeah, well, I've gone on Ancestry and I have this name that's my 9th great-grandfather. But if they type that into Google, they'll come up with our site, because I've done it with people, just to see if it'll come up. And I type in, Lieutenant Thomas Blake, First Lieutenant Thomas Blake, and it comes up on Google. It's our website. It comes up and it lists the bio. So I know at least if people are out there looking, some of the gentlemen who they have never been represented, they were represented, but they're not represented now, because the equitable thing is for us to have 100% representation of those officers, to make sure that their memory and the ideals that they fought for lives on. this, because I just want their entire story to be told because they deserve it. So I'm always looking for the next source, hopefully primary.